Our presenter today is Dr. Lee DeRemer, a consultant and retired Air Force officer. Lee explores how to make a successful midlife transition in this presentation, drawn from his dissertation research with the Center for Values-Driven Leadership.
We live at a time of unprecedented personal freedom, also unprecedented wealth, technological convenience, opportunity, comfort. We have the greatest longevity of any generation. We have the greatest quality of life in our later years. We have a lot to live for and a lot of living to do. It's a great story, but we also live at a time with record levels of depression, suicide, anxiety, and disorders. This paradox of positive opportunity and negative outcome has implications for society and implications for us. In fact, one of the symptoms is this thing we call midlife crisis, with all the attendant negative actions and things associated with that, because we get into denial or we try self-medication because we want these perfectly natural concerns and frustrations to go away. They're inconvenient and sometimes they hurt. Well, what if there was a positive alternative to this? What if, let's call it a midlife introspection, was available for us to help us to engage and to think through how we're going to do the second half of life? What if this midlife introspection were able to give us an opportunity to provide answers and to save ourselves from the pain and the discomfort and the things associated with self-indulgent decisions and mistakes made because of things like spending money we don't have, or getting involved with alcoholism or drug abuse or marital affairs or workaholism, activities that can lead to fear and loneliness, that lead to problems with later years and actually finding ourselves at a point of regret. All this is aging badly, when in fact we could be spending our time building a more positive legacy of impact, contribution, and significance. I'd like to talk to you about the fact that there is another option. But before I do, I need to introduce to you the idea of an analogy that we're all familiar with. In fact, if you can think about a referee when they go off the field to review a call, they come back and the first thing they say is, upon further review. The next thing they say is either that the call on the field is overturned or that the call on the field is confirmed. If the call on the field is overturned, you find out what they're going to do about it, and if it's confirmed, you play on. We could think of this positive alternative as you upon further review. In fact, this is a perfect time to have conversations with ourselves about consequential questions such as, who am I? Why am I here? These issues of identity and purpose, in fact, bring us to a place that we need to discuss at middle life because we have issues that we probably haven't addressed for a while. When we do, we might find out that we continue with the call on the field and the play as confirmed. But we might also decide to chart a new course, pick a new direction upon further review. In fact, this midlife introspection can be an opportunity for great personal growth. We know from research with the Center for Values-Driven Leadership that midlife introspection is an opportunity to take a challenging, deeply personal quest to rediscover our personal identity, our goals, our life values, our sense of purpose. We also know that it's not the same thing as just making this up. We are informed by our life purpose or our life history so far, but we're not constrained by it. We're also not constrained by our present circumstances. Anybody can do this. Research at the Center for Values-Driven Leadership has also given us the opportunity to learn through interviews just what the experience is like, and so that it's not just an exercise in self-awareness. We know from the Center for Values-Driven Leadership inside out focus and model on leader development that in addition to self-awareness, we provide better self-leadership. We provide better leadership to others. We can actually improve the performance of our organizations. We can in fact build better homes and communities. That's the reason that this thing is worth doing. We can find out, in fact, that there's a way to go through this, and what I'd like to do now is to describe for you the process that I learned as a result of the interviews that I got to spend with 15 extraordinary people. The process for personal transformation starts with an experience that we call ennui, or a sense of restlessness. You're having the sense that things are just not quite right. I know how I got here, but I don't know where this is going, and what I see so far I don't like. People are explaining a feeling of restlessness, dissatisfaction, frustration, and as they look to the future, they don't want to do this for another 5, 10, 20 years. Here are some of the feelings that the people described as they walked through this. They described life as not satisfying. My job is going flat. I just felt like this was going nowhere. I was not using my gifts as well. Life wasn't as, and the work wasn't as challenging and as meaningful. One person described feeling betrayed, feeling irrelevant at work. Now, the bad news goes to worse, because if this isn't addressed, then we find ourselves at a catalyst phase, and I want to show you what that's like. In the catalyst phase, this situation gets intolerable. People are realizing, I can't accept the status quo anymore. In fact, what I want to do is, for most people, go back into denial of midlife crisis. It takes a certain amount of courage and patience to be among the 10% who say, I'm going to plow through this. I really want to do this, and I'm going to take the time to get there. Here's how painful it just is for the people who are talking about it. These are their words. I hated it. It was killing me. It was sucking the life out of my team. It was a miserable place to work. I felt like a coiled spring, and I needed to go. Now here's the power in these statements. If we go forward, rather than muddle through and accept a new normal, we can find ourselves in a place of transformation. The process looks something like this. People who go forward can use the best practices established through this research and through these interviews in order to try to do this in an intentional and thoughtful way. Here's what it looks like. First, if you do choose to go forward, you've already satisfied the first best practice, and that is doing this is better than not doing it. Second, be intentional. Third, use all the resources that you have available to you. And fourth, finish. The people who had the courage to go through this midlife introspection experience asked themselves tough questions, and they challenged their assumptions. Here are some of the questions they asked and what it looked like. What have I accomplished? Have I made any difference? Was this meaningful? Did I do any good? People asked themselves questions of vision, dreaming of the future, and daring to dream again. Some people reconnected with God. Some people found the value of silence and a retreat. They rolled up their relationships with pastors and other mentors. They invested time in their spouses, and they leveraged self-awareness exercises and other activities that would help them understand who they are and who they've become. You can see that this can become a more powerful, momentum-building experience. In fact, here's what happens if you do go on. The pain and discomfort doesn't end, by the way, because great goals require some great effort. But it's still important to go through this in order to get to the insight phase, the self-awareness, and go through the emotional intensity that's necessary in order to find out and be reacquainted with who we are. But take a look at how these people describe this as we start to get to a healthier place. I'm going deeper. I started to understand that this was going to be frightening. I was crying all over the place. That was said by a person who said, I didn't have time to cry. Think about being in that place. It was frightening. It was uncomfortable. People then emerged and realized that they were doing more learning. They were addressing self-doubts. They realized they had become a new person. Imagine the power of the consequence of recognizing that there's more time behind us than there is in front of us, and still wanting to have an impact. To feel the liberation of being realigned with yourself, with your strengths. And what if you decide, if I want to have that impact, now is the time. The momentum's building. By the time you get to this point, your countenance has changed, your behavior has changed, and that's why I call this next phase the manifestations phase. Everything is out in the open, and your patience and your perseverance is paying off. You're actually at a point where you're experiencing the benefits of clarity, decision, renewed vigor, personal peace. The people who have gotten to this point have invested the time and the emotional energy Whether it takes 3 months or 3 years, the importance is not the time, but the closure and the completeness and the confidence that comes from having gone this far through this. Let me describe the healthier place that these people are as contrasted with the same people months or years earlier when they started from the painful side of this diagram. Total transformation. What changed was me, not the workplace, not the environment, not the people, just me. I engage with integrity now. I'm invested in other people's lives. One person reported of his spouse after she went through this experience, she's flourishing. She's a superstar. She's a completely different person in a completely different place. Now think about the people described by this collective set of statements. I want you to know they're changed. They are energized, embodying a renewed sense of purpose, a renewed sense of life goals. And there's something about people with 20 or 30 years behind them that you ought to join and support or get out of their way, because the power they have when they are re-energized and reconnected with a sense of life purpose is amazing. Some traditions refer to this as the abundant life. Some traditions call it a life well lived, and others the examined life. I just want you to know how powerful it is. I want to invite you to do this. All of us have stories. All of us are still writing our stories. A midlife introspection experience can be the lead paragraph in the next chapter of our stories. Wouldn't it be great if we could truly flourish while writing the next chapter of our lives? Wouldn't it be great if we could do something so exciting and so compelling for the second half of our lives upon further review?